In 1803 London, the body of a condemned prisoner suddenly opened its eyes in full view of the crowd. This wasn't a horror novel. It was an anatomy demonstration. At the Royal College of Surgeons, scientist Giovanni Aldini had just attached electrodes to the corpse of the executed prisoner Foster. As electricity coursed through the dead man's jaw, it began to tremble. His facial muscles contorted and one eye snapped wide open. When the electrodes touched his torso, he even raised his arm as if struggling to wake from the abyss of death. Aldini was no quack. As the nephew of anatomist Luigi Galvani, he inherited not only his uncle's legacy, but also an ambition to defy the heavens, to unlock death's prison with electricity. More than a decade earlier, his uncle had accidentally discovered on the dissecting table that electricity could make the legs of a dead frog twitch violently. He proposed the theory of animal electricity, arguing that life itself was a form of inherent electrical energy. Now, the nephew sought to conduct this ultimate experiment on a human corpse. Though the spectacle failed to bring the prisoner back to life, it truly tore away the dark veil that had shrouded death for thousands of years. He declared to the world, death might not be the final judgment where the soul departs, but a physical process that can be observed, intervened in, and even temporarily reversed. Yet this discovery unleashed the deepest nightmare of the 19th century. If the dead could be roused by electric shock, might doctors misdiagnose death? The fear of being buried alive spread like wildfire. Craftsmen scrambled to invent a bizarre device, the safety coffin. They fitted coffins with air tubes, ladders, and a rope, connecting the corpse's wrist to a bell above ground. The logic was simple. If you woke up underground, a gentle pull would send a final distress signal to the living. This seemingly absurd invention perfectly captured the era's predicament. The line between life and death was far blurrier than anyone had imagined. The medical revolution of the 20th century further muddied this divide. In 1960, modern cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR, was formally established. Through chest compressions, people whose hearts had stopped could be pulled back from the threshold of death. Soon after, external defibrillators made resurrections a common sight in hospitals. Death was no longer an irrevocable sentence, but a medical emergency that could be intervened in and delayed. But a real dilemma emerged. The invention of the ventilator created an unprecedented form of life. Patients whose brain function had completely ceased, yet machines could keep their hearts beating. Were they still alive? In 1967, the world's first heart transplant pushed this question to the edge of ethical collapse. To transplant a healthy heart, the donor's heart had to stop beating first, forcing the medical community to define what constitutes death. The following year, Harvard Medical School provided an epoch-making answer: brain death. When brain function is irreversibly and permanently lost, even if the heart and lungs are kept working by machines, a person should be legally declared dead. For the first time, the determination of death shifted from the warm heart to the silent brain. But the real battlefield lay in the deeper microscopic realm. In the early 20th century, Nobel laureate Alexis Carrel claimed to have cultured a piece of chick embryo heart tissue in vitro for over 30 years, far longer than a chicken's normal lifespan. This immortal tissue led people to believe that cells are inherently immortal, and aging is merely a result of environmental deterioration. However, the myth was eventually shattered. In 1961, microbiologist Leonard Hayflick discovered that normal human cells stop dividing automatically after approximately 50 divisions. This Hayflick limit revealed that life is programmed with a countdown from the very start. So, what is this countdown device? The answer lies at the ends of chromosomes. Scientists found that each chromosome has a protective sequence called a telomere at both ends. Every time a cell divides, the telomeres shorten slightly, like the plastic caps on the ends of shoelaces. When the telomeres become too short to protect the chromosomes, the cell stops dividing and begins to age and die. Yet, there are exceptions in nature. Cancer cells seem to have broken free of this constraint. Most cancer cells activate an enzyme called telomerase, which constantly repairs the worn telomeres, granting them immortality. In 1951, an African-American woman named Henrietta Lacks died of cervical cancer. Without her knowledge, doctors took a sample of her cancer cells for cultivation. Surprisingly, these cells displayed unprecedented vitality in the laboratory. They could divide infinitely and never age. This became the first human immortal cell line, HeLaCells. Over 70 years, HeLaCells have been shipped to laboratories worldwide, making invaluable contributions to the polio vaccine, gene mapping, and even COVID-19 research. Though Lax passed away, her cells achieved immortality in another form. Even more astonishingly, death is not always a bad thing for life. In 1972, scientists discovered a programmed form of cellular suicide, which they aptly named apoptosis. This is no accident. It is part of life's design blueprint. During embryonic development, the ordered apoptosis of cells between the fingers sculpts our flexible digits. A tadpole's tail also disappears through massive cellular apoptosis as it transforms into a frog. Later, scientists found the genetic switches controlling this self-destruct program in tiny organisms called nematodes, and these genes are surprisingly similar to their counterparts in humans. As scientists gained the ability to adjust cells' biological clocks like watchmakers, an ancient idea resurfaced. Can we artificially slow aging or even defeat death? In 1993, Cynthia Kenyon extended the lifespan of nematodes by doubling it simply by altering one gene. This discovery ignited the spark of modern anti-aging research. From calorie restriction to targeted drugs, scientists have found that aging is not an unshakable law, but a biological program that can be intervened in. This wave has even attracted Silicon Valley's tech giants, who have invested heavily in companies aiming to crack death like a piece of software. More radical gamblers have set their sights on the future. In 1967, psychology professor James Bedford became the first person in the world to be cryogenically preserved after his death from cancer. His body was injected with antifreeze and submerged in a liquid nitrogen tank at -196 degrees Celsius, waiting for a distant day of resurrection. It's the ultimate gamble, betting that the pace of human technological progress can outrun the slow decay of the body in low temperatures. Others have dreamed even further. Since the body is destined to decay, why not scan and upload consciousness and memories to the cloud to achieve digital immortality? As humanity's methods of fighting death evolve with the times, we seem to have overlooked a more fundamental question. Why do we fight death? We often say death is the engine of evolution, making space and resources for new generations. But looking back at history, every great leap of humanity has been a bold challenge to the laws of nature. From harnessing fire and farming to decoding genes and exploring space, what makes us human is precisely our refusal to accept nature's boundaries. Our relentless pursuit to extend the length of life may not stem from fear of nothingness, but from a desire for infinite possibilities. When our ancestors first looked up at the stars, that curiosity to transcend themselves was no different from our modern quest to edit aging and upload consciousness. Defeating death may not be the end of the story, but the true beginning of humanity's journey as a species to break free from its biological cradle and embark on the next chapter of civilization. Yet in any era, for each individual, the question we face is not why we should live, but how we should live. We do not merely march toward death. We carry death within us. It is death that gives life its boundaries, and within those boundaries, we create stories and landscapes that transcend both life and death.